Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating performance document called The Trumpet Story. And listen, what we're exploring today isn't just a piece of music. It's this profound, deep dive into human connection that completely shreds the traditional contract of the passive audience. It uses pure psychoacoustics and wordless brass instrumentation to literally map out a dramatic, emotional narrative right in front of you. So the core rule established right at the absolute start of this performance is this brilliant sensory split. Picture this. We have a protagonist named Elias. He's the first trumpet player, and he's bathed in a single stage spotlight. He is always visible. But the second player, well, they're an acoustic ghost. You only ever hear this second trumpet from the distant, dark shadows of the theater. You never see them. And this instantly creates tension, right? Because you're sitting there watching a solitary person, but your ears are absolutely insisting that a duet is happening. Think of this as our playbill. We're going to track the chronological arc of this dialogue. 1, the solitary call. 2, the unseen intruder. 3, the physicality of convergence. 4, the desperate separation. 5, the agony of silence. And finally, 6, the solitary farewell. All right, let's jump right into movement 1, the solitary call. Here, Elias is totally alone on stage, setting this deeply vulnerable baseline of isolation. For the first minute, that absolute visual isolation really forces you to focus entirely on the sound. Elias plays this swooning, gorgeous tune. Now, mechanically speaking, to make a brass instrument sound swooning, it requires immense physical control. He's using a highly relaxed embouchure, the way he shapes his lips around the mouthpiece, and he's pushing slow, warm air to basically map his internal landscape across the acoustic space of the room. It's romantic, it's melodic, and it establishes complete private vulnerability. But about a minute in, that isolation totally breaks. This distant sound emerges from way in the back of the theater, and immediately your brain starts calculating interaural time differences. That's the microseconds it takes for that new sound to hit one ear before the other. This triggers a completely involuntary, biological orienting response. Your brain is literally doing the math to pinpoint the origin of the sound in three-dimensional space, and suddenly you realize the unseen player is physically approaching the stage. Which brings us to movement 2, the unseen intruder. As that second trumpet gets louder, simulating that physical proximity, we notice something absolutely critical about what it's actually playing. Instead of some hostile acoustic takeover or just a blast of discordant noise, the unseen trumpet plays variations and improvisations of Elias's exact tune. Taking someone else's motif and improvising on it, that is the ultimate demonstration of active listening. It builds immediate neurological trust. It's not an interruption at all, it's an intelligent, empathetic response. So the crucial point here is how Elias reacts. He doesn't play louder to reestablish dominance or fight back. Instead, both trumpets begin to introduce these hesitations at odd intervals. By mutually abandoning a strict, mathematically predetermined musical tempo, they are actively leaving negative space for each other. This hesitation is essentially a biological negotiation. It requires the heavy cognitive load of actually stopping to listen to the other person before you reply. They are wordlessly talking to one another. Let's move to movement 3, the physicality of convergence. That tentative getting-to-know-you phase we just talked about, it bursts into absolute jubilant agreement. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer physical toll of human connection. Both trumpets just go at it with full volume for a minute or two, becoming super upbeat. When two trumpets do this simultaneously, their frequencies align in the air, creating constructive interference, which means massive amplitudes. Playing upbeat at full volume requires staggering lung capacity, intense abdominal compression, and literal acoustic shockwaves forming inside the brass tubing. The energy output is just staggering. In this moment of peak acoustic energy, the distance is completely gone. It's a true equilibrium. Elias believes he's found the secret to the universe in this other. The cognitive load of figuring out how to communicate is entirely replaced by the sheer, unadulterated physical joy of being perfectly synchronized. Their shared resonance absolutely saturates the entire theater. But then, things shift in movement 4, the desperate separation. That joyful connection is incredibly fleeting. The energy drastically shifts, and we witness this deeply asymmetrical reaction. The unseen trumpet begins to slowly lower its volume, adopting that swooning quality again as it passively just drifts away into a peaceful sunset. But Elias, the anchored trumpet, he reacts with frantic panic. He starts playing faster and louder with this desperate staccato urgency. It perfectly mirrors the panic of a dropped phone call.
Think about it. When a signal fades, you don't casually lower your voice, right? You shout. Elias is essentially shouting down the hallway of the theater. He is overblowing the horn, accelerating the tempo, desperately trying to throw enough acoustic energy across the room to anchor the connection before it completely severs. It's this frantic pursuit that ultimately fails.
Which drops us into the agony of silence. Elias hesitates, listening for his fading partner, and then the music stops entirely. He just stands there under the spotlight in total dead air for 30 seconds, half a minute. In a live theatrical setting, enduring that kind of physical weight diminishes his identity and feels like an absolute eternity. Remember, the audience was just flooded with high-amplitude sound waves. The sudden removal of that stimulus creates this massive acoustic vacuum, and the human brain abhors an auditory vacuum. It is excruciatingly uncomfortable. Both the performer and the shifting, restless audience are desperately hunting for a missing signal that is never going to come. The composer is masterfully using the deliberate absence of sound as a physical weight to translate the raw feeling of a broken connection. Finally, we reach Movement 5, the solitary farewell. That heavy silence is finally broken as Elias gathers the breath to mourn. He begins to translate the stages of grief into brass. He starts slow and low, building back into that swooning melody, the acoustic memory of the relationship. But then he releases very high, loud, short notes. To hit these, the lip aperture must be incredibly tight, requiring massive air velocity. It is an explosive, tension-filled scream of release and a final, painful goodbye to the unseen player. But hold on, before we wrap up this explainer, I want to pose a question that kind of recontextualizes everything we've just learned. Because we never actually saw the second player, we are forced to wonder, what if there was never a physical second trumpet player at all? What if Elias was just having a heartbreaking, dramatic dialogue with an echo of his own making, a memory he couldn't hold on to, or maybe his own reflection projected into the dark theater? If the unseen trumpet was really just an acoustic ghost, then Elias's journey is actually about realizing that the music he shared with a stranger was a resonance of what was already inside him. By joining the universal symphony within himself, the searcher realizes he is never truly alone. He ends the performance not with a scream, but with a single, low-volume, low note. It's a profound moment of groundedness. The universal force is the music, and we are simply the instruments. So the next time you hear an echo in the dark, remember that sometimes the most profound conversations don't require a single word. What resonance are you leaving in the negative space around you? Thanks for joining me. Keep learning and keep listening.